පහසුකම් වැඩි දියුණු කිරීම. ගම්මැද්ද ආරම්භ කළ වගයි. ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පෞර.
A very good afternoon. This is News First, where the people come first. Bringing you the news, I'm Sasha Dialvis. Before we take a look at the stories in detail, let's have a look at the headlines.
Buddhists mark Poson Full Moon Poya Day. Friday declared a public holiday for state officials, except for those in essential services. Cabinet approvals Social Security Contribution Tax Bill. People in queues to buy fuel. Diesel shipment to arrive in 2 days. Amendments to electricity laws is a step towards privatization. Unions claim. Adani Group disappointed over controversy surrounding power project. First ODI between Australia and Sri Lanka today.
The Cabinet of Ministers has approved a proposal to declare Friday as a holiday for the public sector. Friday will be a public holiday for the next 3 months for all state officials except for those attached to essential services.
Friday's holiday will not apply for public officials in essential services such as water, electricity, health, security, education, transport, ports and aviation. The Department of Government Information said steps have been taken to grant leave on Friday to other government services as a solution to the current fuel shortage. The department said it would be appropriate to provide facilities to these officials to engage in agriculture activities on that day. Cabinet approval has been granted to allow public officers to go overseas on no-pay leave for 5 years. This will not affect their seniority and pension. The Cabinet also approved to amend the circular for the admission of children to the first grade of schools from 2023. A new circular is to be published considering the requests made by various parties. The Cabinet has also granted approval to introduce a new 2.5% tax for importers, manufacturers and service providers who record a turnover of more than 120 million rupees every year.
Trade unions say the government is trying to privatize the Ceylon Electricity Board by amending the Electricity Act.
They were always trying to sell off the electricity board due to various international agreements. In 2009, this bill was amended in a way that the private sector can build power plants without a tender process and without bidding. This plan is being centered around the Adani Group. The CEB chairman revealed that this was done at the request of the president, who was pressurized by the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. But the president denied the claims through a tweet. This is morally incorrect as well. Why are we trying to allow the Adani Group to earn benefits? Look at what IOC is doing. People don't have fuel. The fuel that is available is costly. The government should intervene and control most of the power sector. A small portion can be privatized. Power plants can be built, but it should be done with a clear principle.
India's Adani Group says it's disappointed as it reacted to a massive controversy over an energy project in Sri Lanka.
According to NDTV, an Adani Group spokesperson has said that Adani Group's intent in investing in Sri Lanka is to address the needs of a valued neighbor. He said as a responsible corporate, the Adani Group sees this as a necessary part of the partnership that the two nations have always shared. The spokesperson had said the company is clearly disappointed by the detraction that seems to have come about. He had said, and I quote, "The fact is that the issue has already been addressed by and within the Sri Lankan government," end quote. MMC Ferdinando, the chairman of Sri Lanka's Ceylon Electricity Board, resigned 3 days after he claimed before a parliamentary panel that he was told by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa about Prime Minister Modi pressuring him to give the wind power project directly to the Adani Group. The Indian government has not reacted to the claim, which the official retracted and which President Rajapaksa has denied. The allegations involve a 500 megawatt renewable energy project in Sri Lanka's Mannar district. The controversy erupted a day after Sri Lanka changed its laws to remove competitive bidding for energy projects.
Sri Lanka's fuel crisis is becoming worse as it is running out of the Indian credit line to import fuel. The shortage has left people waiting in line for hours to buy fuel.
People have been in queue for fuel at the Borella filling station since yesterday, but the filling station did not have stocks of petrol or diesel even by this morning. People were in line at the Dematagoda filling station this morning that had run out of diesel and petrol. Diesel stocks at a filling station in Dehiattakandia were over by this morning. Filling stations at Minneria and Hingurakgoda had run out of petrol and diesel many days ago. This has affected farmers. Farmers complain they are not given priority when fuel is being sold. The Tumpagoda Cooperative Fuel Station in Balangoda received kerosene yesterday after 2 months, but tests conducted at the filling station showed that it had contained water. Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminal Limited says the distribution of fuel will continue today as well. An official said fuel will be distributed to locations throughout the island. The Ceylon Petroleum Private Bowser Owners Association says fuel won't be distributed to filling stations as usual. The Energy Minister says a diesel cargo is to arrive in Sri Lanka in the next 2 days. A senior spokesman for the ministry said that steps are being taken to place an order for a petrol cargo.
The shortage of gas also left people waiting in queue for hours or even days in many areas.
A gas dealership store in Balangoda received last cylinders for the first time in 8 months today. Our correspondent reported that gas cylinders were sold under police protection.
Protesters at Gotagogama opposite the President's office in Colombo cleaned up the Galface beach today. Demonstrations at the protest site entered its 67th day today. The protesters are demanding the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Newsfirst with the people.
Janata Vimukti Peramuna General Secretary Tilvin Silva says Sri Lanka needs strong policies to move forward.
Began with a discussion with the village program. Ask him to go to the village now if he can. They are hiding from the people. Ministers avoid the public eye. Earlier they used to travel with a massive entourage of police officers. Now they travel secretly. What difference has the appointment of the new Prime Minister made? They're accused for fuel. Fuel prices crossed 400 rupees. This issue can't be resolved by changing positions. This entire pack of cards contain jokers. We need policies and a committed approach to uplift the country.
A wild elephant attacked the vehicle of a sub-police inspector this morning.
A wild elephant had attacked the vehicle of a sub-police inspector in Maradankadavala this morning. The officer was attached to the Giribawa police station. The sub-inspector escaped unhurt. A wild elephant had attacked a house in Karuvalagaswava in Putlam recently.
Sri Lanka Railways has introduced a new luxury train service connecting Colombo and Kandy.
The new train will leave the Kandy railway station at 4:50 a.m. and is expected to reach the Colombo Fort railway station at 7:40 a.m. It will stop at the railway stations in Kandy, Sarasaviyana, Theradenia, Rambukkana, Polgahavela, Weangoda, Gampaha, Maradana and Colombo Fort. A new train that will run from Colombo Fort to Kandy will be launched tomorrow. The train will leave the Colombo Fort railway station at 5:20 a.m. and reach Kandy at 8:15 a.m. It will stop at the railway stations in Gampaha, Weangoda, Polgahavela, Rambukkana, Theradenia and Sarasaviyana.
Today marks the Poson full moon Poya Day. It was on a day like this Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka in the 3rd century.
Poson full moon Poya Day is celebrated to mark the arrival of Buddhism in Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BC. In 236 BC, Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka during the reign of King Devanampiya Tissa. Buddhism was brought to the country by Mindu Maharahat Thera and the monks who travelled to Sri Lanka from Nabadiva. One of the most significant events that followed this was the establishment of the Buddha Sasana. This allowed the emergence of the elements of a civilized society like writing, art, architecture, religious rituals and even literature.
173 prisoners are to be released in line with Poson Poya Day. This is upon the recommendations of the prison's minister. 23 inmates will be released from the Balikada prison. It's the highest number of inmates to be released from a prison at this time. Police have arrested 4 suspects who demanded ransom after kidnapping a woman in Vaunia.
Police said the 4 kidnappers had demanded a ransom of 400,000 rupees from the daughter of the lady after kidnapping her in Vaunia. Police said they had arrested the suspects in an operation carried out under the guise of paying the ransom through the daughter. The suspects are 26 and 29-year-olds from Vaunia, Kilinotri and Mulitiv.
In news overseas, a Google engineer says one of the firm's artificial intelligence systems might have its own feelings and says its wants should be respected.
Google says the language model for dialogue applications, also known as Lambda, is a breakthrough technology that can engage in free-flowing conversations. But engineer Blake Lemoyne believes that behind Lambda's impressive verbal skills might also lie a sentient mind. Google rejects the claims, saying there is nothing to back them up. Spokesperson Brian Gabriel told foreign media that Lemoyne, quote-unquote, was told that there was no evidence that Lambda was sentient. Lemoyne, who has been placed on paid leave, published a conversation he and a collaborator at the firm had with Lambda to support his claims.
According to data published by a German statistical agency, Germany's inflation rate reached 7.9% in May. The figures were based on the Consumer Price Index and compared with prices from May 2021.
May's inflation rate was thus up by roughly 1/10 over the already record-breaking rate in April this year. It's the highest rate of inflation since German reunification and a level similar to that seen in 1973 and 74 following the oil crisis.
The first one-day international game between Australia and Sri Lanka will be played in Pallekele today. The game will begin at 2:30 p.m.
Sri Lanka has won 32 out of 97 one-day international games against Australia since 1975. Australia have won 61 games while 4 have ended in a draw. Sri Lanka has played 27 out of the 29 one-day internationals at the Pallekele International Stadium in Kandy and have won 13. Today's match will be the first ODI in 2 years for Australia's David Warner, Stephen Smith, Pat Cummins and Glenn Maxwell.
And with that, that's a wrap of Lunchtime News here on TV1. For details on these stories and more, log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. Thank you for watching.